Welcome back to our 32 for 32 NFL preview series. And as you can see by the graphic, we are talking New York Football Giants. And I know my co-host here is extremely excited to be talking about a new era of Giants football. Out with the old, in with the new. Brett, these are boys.
Yeah, look, I can talk Giants all day, any day. It is slightly a new era, but as we know, Dave Gettleman is still there. So
right, we do not have a segment for those. Right now, we do not have a segment on Gettleman Ineptitude. That is for the regular show, which you can watch, which you can join us on any type of platform. But I do have to ask you about one of your coaches.
Yeah, which one?
You guys brought in the Clapper. So. Yep. How excited are you that you have the Clapper?
You know, look, I am very excited that we have the Clapper. We have some guys with some good names too, actually. Shaplinsky. We have we have the Kitchen. We have the Clapper. It's really
it's exciting. just like a Bed Bath and Beyond over there.
Pretty much. We have Columbo. We got a lot going on there.
Like the TV show. Let's get into it. Let's get into the new era for Giants football. New coaches, new staff. What's your take on this whole thing here?
I mean, I'm generally excited about the staff. Mike, we've talked about off air, and I think we even talked about on one of the Goal Line Stand episodes. I'm a big believer in signs and also of initial impressions. So if you go first back to the Ben McAdoo opening press conference, he wore a suit that was about 5 sizes too big because he had lost some weight. To me, that was a really bad look. The press, really beat him up for it. And look what happened. It was a terrible, even though they got him to the playoffs, it was fool's gold. It was not a very good team, and whatever, they imploded. Then they bring in Pat Shurmur. He's saying his first sentence at being introduced, and the lights go out in the room. Now, I don't know if that is literally my father saying, from up above, look, no, I'm tired of it. I don't want Pat Shurmur, but I take that as a sign. So fast forward now to Joe Judge. He won the initial press conference, and I think he does come across. It's like a mix of Belichick and Saban, who are, the two people that were his mentors. But he's trying to create his own image, and I commend him for it. He definitely is much more old school. I think he's going to make it uncomfortable for guys to lose. And that's something that the Giants desperately need, because the Giants have the most losses of any team in the past 3 seasons.
Really?
In the NFL, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So from everything from afar, watching the things that he's done, it's running laps and having guys run laps and all this crazy stuff. It worked for one guy there that won. It worked for 2 guys there, really, that won Super Bowls. So maybe that is the model. Maybe that is the method. Maybe that's the Giant football way.
Perhaps, I think the media has overblown. So it's interesting, and Mike, we see this. Being that I'm also in the Delaware Valley, I also follow the Eagles beat writers, and I think you see, and this happens for the Eagles too. There's a difference in the tone between the local beat writers and the national media.
Yeah,
the national media is blowing this out of proportion. He's trying to be the next Bill Belichick, but he hasn't even won a game. Blah blah blah. He can't do this. Meanwhile, I think it's been about 7 laps in total for the entire training camp that have been run.
Oh, really?
Though interestingly, a few players, I think within the past week, have had a few different screw-ups, and without a coach even having to tell them, they ran a lap. That's interesting.
That's good for them.
That means someone's buying in. So, again, I think it's a little overblown. Yeah, I mean, he's coming off as a little bit of a hard ass. There was a practice last week. He ended practice early and then just chewed into them for 10 minutes. But guess what? This team has sucked, and they deserve a little bit of chewing out. If
Fair
you're not
enough.
good, either you get yelled at or get cut.
Right.
So I'm okay with it.
Let's get into it now. Let's get into who's come in. We got a couple different things here: acquisitions, departures, a whole 9 yards, and 4-12 a year ago, third place in the division.
Yeah.
Lots of changes here. I really, 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 really like the first one, which came just a few days ago. We discuss it on our podcast on a regular basis. Who the hell's going to sign Logan Ryan?
Yeah.
Here you go, New York Football Giants.
Yeah, I mean, this made so much sense. I mean, even though it's North Jersey, he's a South Jersey kid, attended Eastern High School, then went to Rutgers. He's coming home. He even said so as such on Twitter. Also, he has familiarity with Joe Judge. So this was a perfect synergy. I actually think they're going to use him a good bit at safety as well because of the injury to Xavier McKinney, the second-round pick. James Bradbury was brought in, another good cornerback. He was kind of considered the second best free agent available at the position. He struggled a little bit so far, supposedly in training camp, but again, it's training camp. I'm not going to worry that much yet. Nate Ebner is the guy who Joe Judge has worked with very closely, being that Joe Judge was the special teams coach at New England, and Nate Ebner is essentially, even though he's a safety, he's a special teams guy. So that's really his specialty. Kyle Fackrell was brought in from Green Bay, had 10 sacks a few years ago, back when the New York Giants defensive coordinator, Corey Graham, was he was coaching for the Green Bay Packers at the time. Excuse me, I got a little tongue-tied there. So Fackrell, I think, it's interesting. The new staff that came in Green Bay, he sort of fell out of favor. So it just kind of made sense to give him a shot. They got him for a pretty cheap deal. So, I'm interested. Excuse me, Patrick Graham, not Corey Graham. That's the defensive coordinator for the Giants. Wow, that whole thing got me tongue-tied. Anyways, Austin Johnson, defensive tackle from Tennessee. Big run-stuffing guy. I think that he was brought in because a few of the more recent defensive tackle draft picks in later rounds haven't really materialized, namely RJ McIntosh and Chris Slayton. Dion Lewis, another North Jersey kid, played college ball at Pitt. I think he's an excellent third down back, will pair well with Saquon Barkley. Blake Martinez for Green Bay, the middle linebacker, definitely an upgrade over Alec Ogletree, who was just really not worth the money or the compensation that he was obtained for. And I think Blake Martinez is definitely going to be an upgrade, and particularly in terms of run defense. A little bit worried about his pass defense abilities, but we'll see. The next two guys were brought in for the backup quarterback competition. Colt McCoy appears to have the leg up on that. Cooper Rush was brought in because the Giants have Jason Garrett as their offensive coordinator. Cooper Rush is formerly a backup quarterback in Dallas, so it was believed that he would know the system pretty well. I think it's going to be interesting to see whether the Giants keep 2 or 3 quarterbacks. If they keep 3, Cooper Rush has a shot to make the team. Levi Toilolo is a gigantic tight end, no pun intended. He was like 6'6", 280. He's a blocking tight end. And I think San Francisco had a lot of tight ends, so they were able to let him go. But I think he's going to be valuable, really, to establish that run game and help Saquon out. Then the last guy there, Isaac Yadam, was actually obtained 2 days ago, or 3 days ago, excuse me. It was a 7th-round trade for the Broncos. He was originally a 3rd-round pick from Boston College. The word is that when Vic Fangio came in and brought more of a zone scheme defense, it just didn't really translate to his game. He's more of a press corner, which is how Patrick Graham runs his defense. So I'm actually excited. I think that was a good pickup and worth a 7th-round pick.
Lots of movement here for your New York Football Giants. let's talk about guys that are coming, and we got guys coming. We're going to have guys going, right? So let's get into it. Let's get into the Giant departures. Again, huge name, top of that list. The Eli Manning era has officially come to an end.
Yeah, it was sad. Definitely got a little teary-eyed. I'm man enough to admit during the press conference, which I thought Eli was great. It was just time. This probably should have happened a year or two earlier. But like most things lately, the Giants mismanaged that. I'm forever indebted and thankful to Eli. It was an entertaining 15 years, and hopefully I believe he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. I know that he is not a first ballot Hall of Famer. And I think it's going to take several years, but I do think he will get in eventually. So, yeah, that's, it is the end of the Eli Manning era. Antoine Bethea, I think he started playing football back in the 60s. I mean, the guy, he was a really good player at one point, but I mean, even when they picked him up last year for 1 year, I was like, it's just never a good move to have like 39-year-old safeties. There's not many that are that good. Rhett Ellison retired after another neck injury. He was a decent player, someone that we kind of overpaid for from the Vikings. But I mean, he played well. Unfortunately, injuries cut his career short. Antonio Hamilton really did not do much at cornerback. Neither did Cody Latimer or Kareem Martin or Alec Ogletree or actually Mike Remmers. These departures, honestly, I don't miss them that much. I hate to say. These are guys that the Giants either overpaid for or just guys who didn't really contribute that much. Cody Latimer now is really going to be out of the league because of legal issues. Nobody picked up Kareem Martin or Alec Ogletree, and Mike Remmers just is sort of a middling middling sort of utility offensive lineman who's now on the Kansas City Chiefs. Aldrick Roses is a former Pro Bowler, but had a DUI and is now gone. We have Graham Gano as our kicker, a guy who's going to be added to that list soon. We don't know when. Is the former first-round pick of the New York Giants, DeAndre Baker, we've discussed numerous times on regular episodes of the Goal Line Stand show for being arrested for armed robbery. They're just waiting for the right time, I guess the most advantageous time from a financial standpoint to cut him, but he will no longer be part of the Giants at some point. Part of Dave Gettleman's ineptitude.
Yeah, we that's all I got to say on that one.
But I mean, it's really, look, if you look at those departures, none of these guys made any other teams really. So
no.
It is. I mean, that shows you how much they've been struggling and how far this team has fallen.
Yeah, as a team in the division, the Eagles, the Giants are who we thought they were.
Yeah.
But let's get to it. COVID-19 opt-outs. Nate Solder up there, obviously big name at the top of this list.
Yeah, but both very physically big too. I mean, he's like 6'8.5". Nate Solder opted out. He has a young child who actually is dealing with cancer and other issues. So first and foremost, we wish the Solder family well, and made all the sense in the world for him to opt out. I will say, again, I have absolutely no issues, and I applaud him actually for opting out. It's what I would have done. I think it's what any reasonable person would have done. He's protecting his family, and I have no issues with it. It is a little unfortunate because after this year, the New York Giants were going to cut him. But because of him opting out and the contract tolls, it's actually going to be more difficult for the Giants to cut him before next year. So in this one, it does kind of hurt the Giants, but honestly, I don't care. He did the right thing, and it's fine. So all in all, I have no issues. Damari Scott was a backup wide receiver. Sam Beal was actually expected to start at cornerback. He was a third-round supplemental pick from a few years ago that Dave Gettleman made. His first year, he missed the entire year due to a shoulder injury. Last year, he was injured a bunch. When he came into play, it was not pretty. He was engaging in his own bit of social distancing. and now he's opted out. So we haven't really gotten much out of that supplemental pick yet.
I like that. Its own form of social distancing. You gotta keep it light sometimes. I mean, it is what it is. Let's get to it. Let's get to the Giants draft. You were somewhat happy here.
I was somewhat happy. I was a bit disappointed in the first pick. Then the pick grew on me, but now I'm getting worried, which I'll talk about.
I was just saying, okay, because the thought process after the pick was you got the most "quote unquote" pro-ready guy.
Yes. So there were 4 top offensive tackles that everyone discussed, and honestly, there was really no definitive as to who was the top guy. The Giants were the first to draft one of them, so history will have it that Andrew Thomas was picked first. I think Andrew Thomas, from an athletic standpoint, was actually the most limited of the 4, but also the most pro-ready and ready to be a left tackle because that's what he had played. He played the most amount of football. So I understood why, in light of COVID and everything else, it made sense to draft him. However, the Giants have had a few full scrimmages, and he has struggled mightily against one of our outside linebackers, Lorenzo Carter. For those of you who are not Giant fans, you're like, who's Lorenzo Carter? I think that's part of the problem. Lorenzo Carter actually has a lot of upside, but really hasn't shown up yet on the field. But again, he's a rookie. Rookies are going to struggle. And particularly now that Nate Solder's out, Andrew Thomas is our starting left tackle. So he's who we have. I think he will grow to be, at absolute worst, a solid starter. And I'll take it. Again, you'd like to, to me, that's hitting a solid single, maybe a double. But to me, if you're drafting 4th, you need to land you got to get a triple, I think, or a home run. And I don't know if Andrew Thomas is going to be that.
On a position like a lineman, yeah.
Yeah, so that's all. Xavier McKinney, I'm actually really excited about that. A lot of people had him as a top safety in the draft. Unfortunately, he broke his foot, and he is out for 10 weeks. He's probably going to be placed on injured reserve. This year, unlike other years, anyone who's placed on injured reserve actually could be designated to come back. I believe the rule for this year, it might change again next year, is you have, after you're placed on injured reserve, it's like a 21-day window where after that you can then come back. But I think, he's the kind of kid where he's a lot of positional versatility. He can play slot corner. He's a really good player. So I'm looking forward to me, I view that as from the long-term perspective. I'm glad we have him. So I thought it was a good pick. Matt Pert, offensive tackle from Connecticut, definitely a little bit more of a project. Really tall, has a lot of wingspan. Just needs to get physically stronger. Darnay Holmes from UCLA, he and then the 5th round pick I think might be our best picks of the draft. Darnay Holmes has done very well in camp and looks to have nailed down the slot corner position. So I give him a lot of credit. Shane Lemieux was a pick I really liked. The Oregon offensive line in general was very good. And, he was a longtime starter for that line. And it appears as if he's played well enough this training camp to the point where next year, I think the Giants are going to end up cutting Kevin Zeitler and saving about $12 million in cap money. Because Shane Lemieux is that good. He kind of reminds me a little bit of David Deal. You remember him, Mike?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily think he has the positional versatility or flexibility that Deal had, but as a guard, that's who he reminds me of. Cam Brown is sort of he was always known as an athletic freak at Penn State more so than a football player. He's right now, his roster spot's kind of hanging in the balance. Carter Coughlin looks to have made it as a defensive end, outside linebacker. Then we kind of, as you can see, the Giants went on like this linebacker run, except for Chris Williamson. TJ Brunson from South Carolina is known as like a thumper in the middle. He's a little dinged right now, so I wonder if they may try to save him and not expose him to the waiver wire by putting him on IR. Then Chris Williamson, the cornerback, and Tate Crowder. Tate Crowder has only played linebacker for, I believe, 1 year. He was a running back in Georgia, so he's obviously very athletic. And supposedly he's had a pretty good camp. So it's an interesting draft. It's not one that I absolutely love. There's some interesting picks. I would have liked to have seen, maybe another wide receiver here or there. I would have liked them to address the pass rush more so than they did. But hey, I think I think they got some good value. The one thing I'll say about Dave Gettleman, I think he finds good value towards the end of drafts. If there's one thing about him, he's good at that.
Then he's good at something. Let's get to it. You see a little bit of a change on our graphic here. Let's take a look at a glance quickly. 2020 offense of the New York Football Giants at a glance. Obviously changes here at the top with the quarterback. Not new, but I mean, it's official, right? Now it's done. Now the Eli Manning era is over.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it. Daniel Jones, it's his show. Colt McCoy is his backup.
Yeah.
Okay. All eggs in the basket.
Yeah. I mean, it is his show. By the way, just before we get into it, like him substantively, I cannot stand the nickname Danny Dimes. You like that nickname?
I didn't even realize that was his nickname. Why is someone calling him Danny Dimes?
You haven't heard that nickname?
No, I guess I probably haven't paid attention enough to it.
Yeah, I guess the team, I guess, was
a dime.
Yeah, you throw dimes. He's Danny.
Wow.
I don't like it. I wonder if people thought it was like kind of Tony Soprano-ish. Like, hey, it's Danny Dimes.
Everyone in New Jersey needs a nickname, Bo.
I'd give. Apparently, he hates it too. That's
good.
the word. I do not like it, but look, there are components of his game that I like and I'm pleasantly surprised with, and there's things that worry me. I guess I'll start with the negative and then go to the positive. He needs to work on his the sense of feeling a pass rush. He gave up the most fumbles in the league. So he just kind of seems oblivious to a pass rush. I think he needs to work on his long balls as well as reading coverages better. But those are things I think to be expected from a younger player. I think all in all, he was pretty accurate. The benefit to him, because he was getting a lot of fumbles and taking a lot of hits, he's fearless in the pocket. So
right.
From that perspective, I'd rather have that than say, one of the knocks I think on like a guy like Blaine Gabbert was, as soon as he saw the rush, his game crumbled. This kid, Daniel Jones, he's always looking forward, and just I think almost to his detriment a little bit. He's also much more athletic than I thought he'd be. And, I think he's also a leader, and he's taking this seriously. He's supposedly put on about 10 pounds of muscle. It's going to be interesting because if this team doesn't do well, what do you do then? Because there's going to be some really top prospects at quarterback at the top of the next draft. Do you try to really go all in and surrounding Daniel Jones, or do you start over again? I don't know. It's a tough question. He's shown me like just enough where I am a believer, but I'm not completely sold. I'm not all in yet.
Right. Well, because let's look at it. So the running back, right? The running back room for the Giants, obviously right up at the top, Saquon Barkley. Everybody knows what he is. I enjoy watching the guy play, and I'm an Eagles fan. He's a great player. Dion Lewis, probably a worthy backup, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to grade out if I'm grading out the Giants running backs, A minus, B plus,
I'd say like a B plus. Dion Lewis is good. He's a little older, and he's also susceptible to injury. Wayne Gallman then is the other backup who decent. He kind of fell out of favor with the last coaching staff. Supposedly Joe Judge really likes him. They do use a fullback, Elijah Penny. He's a decent fullback, also a good special teams guy. So, look, Saquon is great. It's clear the previous coaching staff Shermer had no idea how to use him.
Well, my direction here with Daniel Jones is look even at wide receivers. There's weapons on the Giants, on the outside of the Giants. Tight end. I like Evan Ingram as a tight end.
Can't stay healthy.
Right. So it is going to it's almost like shit or get off the pot time for the kid. Like, what do you do? And if you have an opportunity to get a guy like, say, a Trevor Lawrence, means you've had a real shitty year, but you almost have to do it.
No, yeah. I mean, go back to when we did our preview for the Jets and we were evaluating Sam Darnold, or even 2 previews ago with Dwayne Haskins. I think the Giants have more weapons, even though I'm not necessarily in love with our wide receivers. They have more weapons than the Redskins. They have more weapons than the Jets. So presumably, Daniel Jones should really take the next step. I think the offensive line, again, we'll see how Andrew Thomas does. You're going to have Cameron Fleming, I guess, as the right tackle. We'll see. I'm cautiously optimistic in Daniel Jones. I get it, but again, it's hard to replace a legend. And I know that Eli had his struggles, but Eli won us 2 Super Bowls.
Right.
And it's like, so it's hard to envision. It's really hard to envision Daniel Jones winning you 2 Super Bowls because that's the standard.
Right. We talked about the running backs. Let's talk wide receivers. You're looking at this from an outsider's perspective. I see Golden Tate, whatever.
Decent.
Yeah. Sterling Shepard, I like him. Darius Slayton, again, I like him. It's not a name. It's not an Odell Beckham.
Yeah.
They're guys, but it's not horrible. It's not Washington.
No, I agree with you.
And it helps when you have Saquon Barkley in the backfield,
who's an excellent receiver.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sterling Shepard I really like. I think Sterling Shepard in the perfect situation is like that all-pro caliber slot guy. I don't think he is a wide receiver 1. The Giants extended him, gave him about $40 million. They didn't pay him like a wide receiver 1. They paid him sort of like a number 2 or a slot guy. Golden Tate is decent. He's getting up there in years. He is what he is. He's a top 30 wide receiver in this league. Darius Slayton was an excellent find for the New York Giants as a 5th-round pick last year from Auburn. I think he could really blossom into being legitimate. He's definitely number 2, but maybe even a number 1. But really after that, you have Corey Coleman, who's a former 1st-round pick, coming off a torn ACL. And apparently the number 5 guy, remember David Sills, the guy that your boy Pete Carroll offered as a quarterback in 8th grade? Yeah. So he's going to be – it looks like he's going to be the 5th receiver. And he's frankly the only one who is kind of a red zone threat because the rest of those guys are all 6 feet and under, with respect to height. So you don't have that, sort of the different kinds of wide receivers. They're all very similar and also very similar physically. So
that's where you're going to have your tight end in theory in this kind of offense, where you're going to have your tight end to be your threat. We talked about Evan Ingram. I like him as a player, but you're right. Can't stay healthy.
Yeah. He's probably as athletic. He's faster, frankly, I think from just a straight 40 than any of the receivers except for Slayton. He ran like a 4.42 the combine.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
He could motor, but he's a little bit of a tweener. He's only 6'3", high 230s. So he doesn't quite have the height. He can't stay healthy, and he's coming up on his contract year. So it's going to be interesting to see. The guy should, for all intents and purposes, be a guy who gets 60 to 70 catches, close to 1,000 yards a season. He should be in that neighborhood, but he just hasn't been able to get it done. I know Joe Judge loves him. So we'll see. I wonder if they're going to kind of use him like an Aaron Hernandez back. You got to, with a new coaching staff, you have on the field.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll take Aaron Hernandez on the field.
Oh, absolutely. Not off the field.
No. I don't want this guy to, start killing members of the community. And by the way, Evan Ingram's a really good guy. Just can't stay healthy. So the other tight ends, Levine Toilolo is more of a blocker. They have this kid, Caden Smith, who came on towards the end of last season. It's going to be interesting to see. There's a local kid from Bergen Catholic, Garrett Dickerson, who was on the team. I think he might be more of a practice squad candidate with the expanded practice squad this year. So, look, but Evan Ingram, he's always been relied upon these last few years, and he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. So we'll see.
Finish up the offense. Let's real quick talk offensive line.
Yeah.
Scary.
There's some question marks.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like you start at center. You don't love the center. They actually just literally the other day re-signed John Jalapeno. Decent center. Like you're like, okay, good. You like their guards are good. So you have Kevin Zeitler established. Will Hernandez going to be on his third year. Hopefully, last year was not. He sort of took a step back, but also he wasn't the blocking scheme that Shermer had these guys using was not even the best kind of blocking scheme for the physicality of guys like Will Hernandez. So it just Shermer didn't use the guys right, which is why he's no longer there. So I like Will Hernandez. You get more and more nervous the more you move out to tackle. So Cameron Fleming is sort of a journeyman offensive tackle. He's had spot starts here and there. He's going to be the right tackle now. Supposedly he's had a terrible camp. So that's something that you got to worry about.
All right.
Yeah. Look, I wish I could say he's just wrecking guys left and right, but that's not the reports. They have a guy, Nick Gates, who they've actually tried him at center, at guard. He's a good player, and I think he might actually take over at right tackle because that other third-round pick, Matt Pert from UConn, he's just physically not ready yet.
Right.
I think by next year that's going to be his spot. And at left tackle, it's Andrew Thomas, boom or bust. It's his show. So we'll see. I gotta believe at minimum he's better than Eric Flowers.
Fair enough, as we've discussed in previous episodes.
Yeah. So
let's move on to the defense.
Good background.
Yeah, I made it a little bit of old school, a little bit of new school, right? So you got Saquon Barkley on the last graphic, and when you're, at least for me, when I'm thinking Giants, I think LT. So. Yeah, I had to go there. I had to put him. Let's start from the corners in, because we talked about Logan Ryan, and I really like that move by the Giants. I wish my Eagles would have done it. Defensive backfield, your thoughts?
So you got Logan Ryan, who again also adds just a lot of flexibility. Can play safety. He does well blitzing and rushing the passer. He's good against the run. He's a good player. I mean. He was ranked number 60 in the top 100 last year. It was amazing. We signed him a week and a half before the season. Except for Saquon Barkley, he's now the only other player the Giants have from the top 100. So it's really remarkable that he wasn't signed earlier. So I'm happy to have him on the team. I frankly wish we'd have locked him up for a few years.
Agreed. I think that's obviously this is a prove it kind of thing, but or he's just going to go year to year at his age kind of thing.
Yeah, either or. So they're going to have Darnay Holmes, who I mentioned, who's the 4th round pick from UCLA. They have Corey Ballantyne, who they drafted in the 6th round last year, who was a Division II player. He was on Mike. I don't know if you remember, right after the draft. Someone shot his best friend to death, and he got shot in the ass.
Oh, yeah.
He's the one who got shot in the ass. Yeah. I'm not making light of it. That's where he got shot.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
It's good because he's still here.
It's tragic that he lost his friend.
They were celebrating him getting drafted. Were they?
Yeah. It's a tragic story. It's like he's kind of ups and downs with him. He's still learning the game. It's a big step up to play in the NFL from Division II. So you have him. We're not going to have DeAndre Baker. He's gone. You have Julian Love, who plays both cornerback and safety. I think he's going to play more safety. You have Grant Haley, who's a cornerback who former Penn State guy who's real close with Saquon Barkley. He's the guy for all you Penn State. Well, for people who remember when Penn State went to the Rose Bowl and they beat Ohio State at home, they blocked the field goal and the guy returned it. He's the one who returned it. So yay Penn State. So he's kind of he's Grant Haley. I ho hum. He's there. They'll make a good play, then he'll get burned and torched for the majority of a quarter. That's just sort of how he is.
You got Jabril Peppers back there too. It's
Jabril Peppers, both Don Bosco and then Paramus Catholic's finest.
Yeah.
You realize that it's amazing. Before he even became a Giant, he already played at MetLife like a bunch of times as just from high school. It's remarkable. Look, I think he's a better. Look, it was interesting. He played running back in the day in high school. He was one of the best players of all time from New Jersey. I just don't think he's kind of a tweener.
Yeah,
he's not great at safety. He's too small to be a linebacker. I like him. He brings energy. He loves being a New York Giant. And I root for him because he's a New Jersey kid. And to me, he reps New Jersey football. Wish he'd have repped it more in college, but going to Rutgers. But I don't think he's worth the money he thinks he is. At some point after this season, he's going to do another contract. So that it'll be interesting to see. I think it'd be a great problem to have where he just deserves a lot of money. I just don't see it because he's really a liability, particularly in pass coverage. And then we were going to have Xavier McKinney, but that's where I think you're going to have Logan Ryan. You have Julian Love. Then another kid to talk about, hopefully, I'm hoping he makes the roster, is Sean Chandler from Temple, who's a local kid from Camden. So I'm hoping he makes the roster. He's decent. I'll take him. He's Temple tough. He's also a good special teams player. Then you have Nate Ebner, who's really more just a special teams guy, though his other position is safety. Yeah, you absolutely do. Yeah, absolutely. That's what David Tyree was.
Let's talk linebackers here. The linebacking core.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on it.
So in the middle, you have Blake Martinez, who's brought over from Green Bay, definitely an upgrade in terms of the rush defense. You have Devontae Downs, who is now going to start because David Mayo tore his meniscus. He's athletic. We'll see. I'm not in love with him, but hey, you'll take it. Then you have some of those rookies. You have T.J. Brunson and Tate Crowder. I don't know how much they're going to factor in. Then you have a bunch of guys who really need to prove their abilities on the outside. You have Marcus Golden, who we brought back with the May 5th tender and fries.
Yeah.
Who had 10 sacks last year. I would tell you a lot of them were more effort plays as opposed to him being a premier pass rusher. We have Lorenzo Carter, who he was one of the top recruits in the nation going to Georgia. And the combine ran like a 4.3, sick athlete. Just it hasn't come together. Carl Banks actually called him out this offseason and excuse me, I'm getting emotional about it. No, he supposedly, he supposedly has worked with them. So this is really his make or break a year. They have last year's 3rd round pick, O'Shane Simonez from Old Dominion, who showed some promise. We'll see. Maybe he could develop more. Then they brought over Kyler Fackrell from Green Bay. So they have a bunch of guys that they could just throw at you. And then they have Carter Coughlin as another 7th round pick from Minnesota. None of them scare you right now.
Right.
I'd love to see a few of them develop, but yeah, there you go. Then along the defensive line, you have at nose tackle Dalvin Tomlinson, who I think is actually a very good nose tackle. I think the Giants, if you look at them traditionally, ever since like the 2007 Super Bowl, they do a really good job of drafting interior defensive linemen who then go get paid by other teams. And namely, like Barry Cofield, who got paid by Washington, Linval Joseph got paid by Minnesota, Jonathan Hankins got paid. So I feel like Dalvin Tomlinson next year is going to end up going to get money from some other team. They have Dexter Lawrence, their other 1st round pick from last year, who's a massive human being who showed up in really good shape. I'm expecting big. I think he could be a Pro Bowler. I'm expecting big things from him. Then we have Leonard Williams, who David Gettleman thought was, when we were 2-6, we needed to trade for. And supposedly he's finally figured it out. And we tagged him this year, so he's eating up a bunch of our salary cap. Huh?
Gettleman's finally figured it out?
No, he hasn't figured out anything. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to get to another Gettleman point in a second, but with Leonard Williams, he's a decent defensive tackle. He's not worth $16 million a year. He wasn't worth trading for, particularly when you're 2-6 and rebuilding. But he's on our line. I think our front three in a 3-4, I think they're very stout against the run. But yeah. The other interesting thing about Gettleman, they were talking about DeAndre Baker. Gettleman said, oh, well, he didn't really have many red flags coming out of college. And John Mara actually said, no, yeah, he definitely did. So I think
a little bit of
the writing is, I think the writing is on the wall that, if they don't make the playoffs, Gettleman's gone. He's going to keep the rest of the staff, and that's it. But the rest of the staff is safe.
Gotcha. Real quick, we're going to run through this. We got key questions for the Giants. Some of these we've already touched on, so we're just going to kind of expand upon it a little bit. We talked about beginning of the Joe Judge era. Are you more hopeful or less hopeful than you were with everybody else? The lights didn't shut off.
He wore a suit that fit,
fitting, so
the lights didn't shut off. Yeah.
Okay. So
more hopeful.
Perfect. Beautiful.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Because we didn't really get to it outside of the clapper at length. What are your thoughts on the rest of the staff put together by Joe Judge?
I like him. Supposedly his emphasis was he wanted guys who were good teachers. I like Jason Garrett. I actually think
I do too. He wasn't a good head coach.
No, I don't think he was a great head coach, but I think he's a good football mind. He's a good offensive coordinator. He has ties to the Giants. He previously played here and actually went to a Super Bowl with the Giants. He has ties to New Jersey. I'm all for it. Patrick Graham, I'm okay with him. Jerry Shaplinsky, I like the name, and therefore there you go. Burton Burns, the running backs coach. He was the longtime running backs coach with Nick Saban and is really well regarded in the college ranks and even in the pro ranks, just considered a great coach. Freddie Kitchens, I'm not too high on, but again, that was him being a head coach. Now he's just the tight ends coach. Right. So you're narrowing his universe. I think it'll be okay. I really like the offensive line coach we have now in Mark Colombo. Supposedly he was a good player, by the way, back when he played for Dallas. And he supposedly just real nasty, gets in the guys' faces, which what I think you want. It's interesting. Another interesting name with the coaches, Brett Bielema is the outside linebacker coach. You have a lot of guys who had
He got to New Jersey one way or another. Brett Bielema is going to be in New Jersey, and thank God it's up in the Meadowlands and not in Piscataway. No,
exactly. Offense. No. Frankly, I think if there's one guy who's a candidate for being here for only 1 year, it's him, because
I think so.
They hired him, but basically every coaching opening, he's like, "Oh, I'm available." He really wants to become a head coach.
I think that was part of the agreement too, that he could interview for any collegiate coaching job.
Yeah,
but he should.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I think all in all, it's a good group, and right now I can only take Joe Judge's word, right? And if it's a group that really values teaching and communication, then that's fine. I thought that Pat Shurmur's coaching staff left a lot to be desired. It was just not a good group. So I'm all for it. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt.
You're only as good as your staff.
That's true.
We discussed Daniel Jones. What are some of the things you believe he'll improve upon in year 2?
I think he has to improve upon the fumbling and his pocket awareness. He needs to read coverages better, particularly some of the.
Would you say that's his biggest deficiency from a year ago, was his pocket presence and holding onto the football?
But that, and then also long balls. He's just, in terms of the ball, I think he has a strong enough arm. I'm not saying it's a Patrick Mahomes level arm. He has a strong enough arm to make any throw. He just needs to work on the placement of the ball for long throws.
Saquon Barkley, did he underwhelm a year ago?
No, I thought he was hurt. And he played hurt for several weeks, excuse me. Everyone's like, oh, he was a sophomore slump. No, it was called a high ankle sprain.
What do you expect out of him in year 3?
Assuming healthy, I'm expecting 12 to 1,400 yards, anywhere from 50 to 70 catches.
We talked receiving core, but any further thoughts on this receiving core?
I would just like to see. I'd like to see Darius Slayton continue to develop and being a legitimate, number one threat. That'd be nice.
Offensive line, how much has it improved from a year ago? We kind of talked about them.
You know what? I just want to see, particularly, I want to see Andrew Thomas improve. I want to see the young guys improve. I want Andrew Thomas to improve, Will Hernandez to improve. Be great if Shane Lemieux can come in to the point where Kevin Zeitler next year becomes expendable. Heck, if we're not doing that great this year, trade Zeitler early in the season. Get some draft capital out of it. I'm okay with that.
We talked defense at length.
Yeah.
Are they better against the run or better against the pass?
I think they're better against the run. I mean, you look at those three defensive tackles, 2D tackles, nose tackle, however you want to phrase them. Very big guys, stout against the run. Blake Martinez is very good against the run, and Jabril Peppers is against. So you look up the middle on all three levels. They're physical and they can stop the run, but it's the pass rush that's a problem.
You're not so thrilled on the back end. Do you anticipate the secondary to engage in proper social distancing in this year of 2020?
Well, Sam Beal's not playing, so he's already social distancing. Just fortunately not on the field.
Telephone.
It's that Sam Beal calling and saying, "Stop talking shit about me." Corey Ballantyne. It's like Corey Ballantyne. You know what Corey Ballantyne is? He's like Ronald Darby for Philadelphia Eagles fans. It's like boom or bust. So we'll see. Again, there's a lot of young guys. I'd like to see them develop. I'm really intrigued for when Xavier McKinney comes back. I just want to see development from young guys. I don't think this team's gonna, go to the Super Bowl and beat the Ravens or the Chiefs. I just want to see development.
You answered the next question. What are you looking for out of the defense in 2020? Development,
and I want to see. By the end of the season, I want to be able to say, okay, one or two of those outside linebackers can get after the quarterback legitimately.
Giants fans, if you enjoyed this, throw a subscribe, give us a thumbs up, drop a bunch of comments. Look, I don't think I was too harsh on the Giants as an Eagles guy.
No.
Tomorrow, we're going to have a little bit of a role reversal where you're going to be asking me about the Philadelphia Eagles, and we're going to be talking Philadelphia Eagles football as we wrap up our 32 for 32 preview series. Join us Tuesday night for our prediction show where we're going to tell you where teams slot for the year. Can the Giants improve upon their 4 wins a year ago? Daniel Jones MVP candidate, maybe. I don't know. Saquon Barkley, fantasy football champion for people, maybe. We'll see. Yep. I'm Mike. That's Brett. And we talk Giants. Tomorrow we talk Birds, and I'm very excited for it.